Hi everybody, I'm Ewan. Hope you're feeling good today because on this session we're going to talk about time management. Now, small confession straight off the bat with this one is time management's a little bit of a misnomer. That's not actually the way you want to think about this. It's the way everybody talks about it, and I'll still use the term as we go through. But it's not really the way you want to think about it. You're not managing time as such. What you're doing is you're managing yourself. You want to make yourself more personally effective. So it's about the results you're getting in life and the relationships you're building in life. That's really what you're managing. You're not managing time as such. Now, there's a couple of tools which I use to do. Some of you be using some of these tools already, but the first one I want to talk about in particular, the first way of thinking about things, the first tool, if you like, is a time management matrix, which comes from Dwight Eisenhower. Now, for those of you who don't know, Dwight Eisenhower was the Supreme Commander of Western Forces, World War II, and he was two-time President of the United States as well. So my guess is he probably knows something about time management and getting things done. Now, this is where this matrix comes from. Now, it's organized around, there's 4 quadrants, which I mentioned this, but it's organized around the 2 concepts of urgent and important. So urgency is, does something need to be done right now? Is it right in your lap right now? Is it in your face right now? Is it something that really needs to be done? And yes, in your life, you will always have things which are urgent. So fine. So is it urgent? Is it something that needs immediate attention? It could be a problem or a challenge or a fire, not a literal fire, but something fine. Or is it not actually quite so urgent right now? Now, the other thing is important. So is the thing that you're dealing with important in your life or not? Now, we'll go through what the quadrants are and how these interact with each other in a minute. But what I would say to you is you can challenge important and urgent. You can reevaluate these things. It's not that it's even if it is urgent now, is it really urgent? That's one of the things you can actually challenge about it. And things which have been important in your life, you can reevaluate things which are important in your life. And if you've not been through an exercise to do that, that can be a good exercise for you to do. But I'll go through the quadrants now anyway, so you get a sense of what I'm talking about here. So there are 4 quadrants, which is then the interaction of these phrases, these ideas together. So quadrant 1 is things which are urgent and they are important. So I'll go through them all, then I'll come back to them in a minute. Quadrant 2 is things which are important but they're not urgent. So it's not urgent, is important. Quadrant 3 is things which are urgent but not important. And quadrant 4 is things which are not urgent and they're not important. So those are the 4 categories. So I'll just run through each of these now. So quadrant 1, things which are urgent and important. Now, you might think that that's where you should be spending your life, but that's not actually where you should be spending most of your life. Because if you're spending your life in this quadrant, life is going to be more stressful. If most of your time is fighting fires, dealing with problems, then, well, you might feel like you're being really busy, but you're going to be really stressed a lot of the time because things which are important to you need action right now. So that's not actually a very efficient place to be. It's not good for your health to work in that sort of environment. Now, I totally appreciate it because I've been here before. Sometimes you'll have managers who kind of attempt to make you work out of that quadrant. Well, we'll talk about this later on, but you've got to find ways to push back against that sort of management. So quadrant 1 is problem solving immediately because it's urgent. Something needs doing about it right now. Now, quadrant 2 then is things which are not urgent, make sure we get the right way around, not urgent, but they are important. Now, this is the quadrant where you want to spend most of your life, is in quadrant 2, because you're dealing with things which are important to you, but right now, they're not urgent. Now, the difference between 1 and 2 is, in 1, the problem situation acts on you. But in 2, you act on the problem because it's not actually yet urgent. So that's where you want to allocate most of your time. That's where you want to have most of your focus. One way of thinking about this is quadrant 2 is opportunity focused, and quadrant 1 is problem focused. Sorry. So you can create more opportunities in your life if you spend more of your time in quadrant 2. Now, we'll talk about how you move more into quadrant 2 in a minute, but you've got to look at things that you're doing in your life. Where do they fit? Are they in quadrant 1? Is it honestly quadrant 2 that I'm operating in? Now, what you've got underneath that then is you've got quadrant 3. Now, quadrant 3 is things which are urgent but not important. Now, that's often where you're getting stuff given to you by other people. So your life is being dictated by other people if you're doing things which are urgent but they're not important for you. Now, if you've got some of that sort of stuff going on, sometimes you need to think, can I delegate this? Could I give it to somebody else? Can I delegate sideways, down, up? Can I say no? That's actually a really powerful thing to do. This is really all assertiveness is about, is the ability to say no. So can you say no to things so that you're moving things which other people are attempting to make urgent for you, but it's not really important stuff for you. Now, there's a couple of other things you can be doing in quadrant 3. Is sometimes we're in quadrant 3 because we think we're in quadrant 1. So we think we're being, working really hard and we're doing quadrant 1 stuff, but it's not important what we're actually doing. So this is where you need a degree of honesty with yourself. Is the thing that I'm doing, is it really important? I'm making it urgent, but is it really important? Does it really need to be done? This can lead on to things like procrastination. So often people procrastinate by finding things to do to avoid doing the thing that they maybe really don't want to do because they think it'll be difficult or something like that. I've had lots of students on training that said when it came to exam time, their house was really tidy because I couldn't possibly study in an untidy house. You can live in an untidy house the rest of the year, but if the choice is between tidying the house and doing revision, I'd rather tidy the house. That's procrastination. You're just putting off what you really need to do. Now, quadrant 4 then is things which are not urgent and not important. Well, I think you've got to ask yourself, what on earth am I doing it for? If it's not urgent and not important, what on earth am I doing it for? Now, you might say, oh, well, you need to recharge your batteries or chill out. Yeah, perfectly acceptable. That's a quadrant 2 activity. So renewal is quadrant 2. You want to make sure that your renewal is quadrant 2. Because that is important. You need to do that. You don't want to wait until your renewal becomes urgent or anything like that. So that sits in quadrant 2. So quadrant 4 activities are probably binge watching stuff on Netflix a little bit too much. Maybe it's stuff like that. Maybe just a little bit too much social media. A little bit might be okay, but if you're doing it too much, then what often happens actually with people is some people spend so much time in quadrant 1 that they then feel that they need to retreat back to quadrant 4 because they get so stressed that they need to go in quadrant 4 just to try and recharge. Well, as I said earlier, what you want to do is you want to manage most of your time in quadrant 2 as best you can. Now, I totally accept, even if you're doing that, you will sometimes have stuff which is quadrant 1. Something's going to come up and you need to deal with it. You have a problem with your car or something like that, you need to deal with it, even if you have been looking after it. So it's not that you'll never have quadrant 1 activities, but what you want to do is you want to spend as much time as possible in quadrant 2. Now, to get into quadrant 2, some of the things you need to do to get there is you need to decide what really is important to you. So this can involve some goal setting, assessing what your priorities are. So if you haven't done that, you could maybe do that in the first place so you get a stronger sense of what is actually really important to me. So that's one of the things you can do. Another thing that you can do is, as I said earlier, you can start saying no more. So if somebody comes to you and they've got some activity that you want to do that you'd really not like to be involved in, see if you can find a polite way of thanking them for the opportunity but declining it on this occasion. So being assertive is one of the tools to help you manage your time more easily. Now, again, if you want to get into quadrant 2 more, what you need to do is you're going to need to take time from quadrant 3 and quadrant 4 activities. That's where your time's going to come from. So start looking at your life and see if you can identify where you are spending time in quadrant 3 and quadrant 4, because that's where you're going to get the time from to move into quadrant 2. Now, other tools that I use from a time management point of view are the really simple ones. You'll be using them all the time yourself already, I'm sure. One is a diary. Put appointments in your diary. Put important events, family events, birthdays and all the rest of it. Family events that you've got, work commitments that are in there, fixed sort of work commitments, meetings and all the rest of it if you really need to go to them, make sure you've got them in your diary. Now, having them in your diary doesn't by itself mean that you'll actually pay attention to it. So the other thing you need to do is you need to look at your diary. I mentioned this from bitter personal experience on a couple of occasions when I've not actually done that. So what I like to do these days is I put things into the diary. At the start of the month, I'll look at the month and I'll see what I've got coming up. Fairly straightforward for me. Sometimes I'll have a block of time which is out for training. So I know the middle of the month I've got 10 days training. So I know that that's where my focus needs to be at that time. So I'll look at what I've got coming up in the month and I'll see what fixed appointments I've got. And then what I tend to do anyway, is then at the start of each week as I do something similar, I'll plan the week. Now, I don't always get into the sense of sticking to things daily. I don't necessarily always plan my day out at the start of the week or anything like that. I'll look at the week and I'll think, well, I want to do these things this week. What's the most important thing that I need to do? So when can I maybe do that? Can I fit that in at some time? And then, kind of allow yourself a bit of flexibility, because you've got to give yourself time in your diary for unexpected things that will crop up, so you can deal with those too. So you never know what's going to come up in your life. So that's one of the ways I do it, is I have a diary. It's very straightforward, but you have a diary, but I look at it at the start of the month, look at it at the start of the week. What have I got on this week? And then I can make sure I fit things in so that I've got time to do everything. Now, the other small tool that I use with this is a to-do list. So I have a list of things that I need to do. So use the diary and to-do list, and then use this concept of this Eisenhower concept of using the 4 quadrants to see where am I spending my time? Can I spend more time in quadrant 2? And make these things habitual in your life. The more you do them, the more they will become habitual for you. And what you'll find is overall you can improve your personal effectiveness by doing this. So that's a little bit of a chat about time management, which, as I said at the beginning, you're not managing time, you're managing yourself. Thanks for watching.